This was Gregory Scarpa then.
Law enforcement have identified him over the years as a top lieutenant in the Colombo crime family.
But now?
Authorities have a theory that Gregory Scarpa got AIDS, and he used AIDS as a license to kill. For the last year and a half, there has been a bloody gangland war being fought on the streets of Brooklyn, New York. So far, at least 13 members of the Colombo crime family have been murdered. Another 16 barely escaped with their lives. Law enforcement authorities say the violence began as a power play to replace former Colombo boss Carmine the Snake Persico, who is now serving 100 years in prison.
From, I guess, November the 18th until basically early January, there was this shooting war.
Charles Hines is Brooklyn's district attorney.
I mean, I have no problem letting these folks blow each other away. I think it's good for us, ultimately. The problem is, you know, most of them don't get annual firing practice, you know, so when they start shooting at each other, they begin to miss, and they end up killing innocent people.
Hines says that when an innocent victim was gunned down last November in what he called a mob-controlled bagel shop, something had to be done.
What we did was, on my orders, we served grand jury subpoenas on 41 Colombo associates, capos, and soldiers. It stopped the war because when they're under subpoena, they can't shoot. They all hide, you know. They watch too many, I think, Class C movies.
But authorities say there is one man they couldn't stop, a man considered the most feared of Carmine Persico's allies, a man who police say is probably responsible for escalating the Colombo War. His name is Gregory Scarpa, seen here in a 1986 police surveillance tape.
Law enforcement sources have identified him over the years as a capo regime, top lieutenant in the Colombo crime family.
Police sources claim Scarpa not only directed some of the mob killings, but committed at least 2 of the murders himself.
Ordinarily, it'd be very unusual for a capo to shoot. He would have any number of people that he could direct hits.
To carry out a shooting?
Yes, sure.
But it's unusual for a capo to do that.
Yeah.
And the reason police say this capo began to shoot is even more unusual. For this is what Gregory Scarpa looks like today. His body ravaged by AIDS. His doctors have given him only months to live.
This is the hand that was dealt to me. I'll play the hand. If I could outbluff the opponent, which is death, fine. If I can't, I lose the hand.
Last summer, Scarpa showed up in a courtroom in Brooklyn, New York, just long enough to receive a cash settlement from the hospital he says gave him an AIDS-infected blood transfusion during an operation for a bleeding ulcer.
I think it was about like 5 or 6 donations that were used. One of them was HIV infected. This blood wasn't tested, and I received that blood.
When we chat a little bit, we'll talk about maybe some of the feelings you have now and what changes you may have gone through. It's rare for an accused mobster to sit down for an interview, but on this day, Gregory Scarpa wanted to send a message to his friends and to his enemies that he would not surrender to AIDS.
I will show them the courage that I've displayed all this time, the bravado. I will show them that, hey, this is still me. There isn't anything on earth that I will hide from or back up from. And I certainly won't do it with this either.
Police say Scarpa had been true to his word. A few days after our conversation, he was arrested and charged with 2 murders and the conspiracy to commit 2 more, all within the last year. Authorities have speculated that because Gregory Scarpa has AIDS, that he used AIDS as a license to kill.
From what I know, that's very, very true. He was dying. He wanted to settle scores himself. Nothing for him to lose.
This man, a high-level member of the Colombo crime family, agreed to speak to Street Stories on the condition that we conceal his identity and change his voice. And even though he has AIDS and admits himself that he's close to death, you still fear him? Even now?
Until he's in the ground, and maybe afterwards, too.
Really?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. They're no candy store gangsters, I'll tell you that much.
According to Justice Department documents, an informant named Joseph Ambrosino says Scarpa personally committed at least 2 murders. One, the shooting of a mobster named Larry Lampisi, and the other, the shotgun murder of Nick Granzio, to whom Scarpa allegedly said before firing, "This one's from Carmine." A few weeks after his arrest, Scarpa's attorney was able to get him transferred from prison to a nearby hospital and then released on bail.
The allegations that were laid out by the informant are total and complete allegations. They're totally and completely false. This fella, Joseph Ambrosini, was a person that I wouldn't even allow myself to talk to.
Who is Ambrosino?
He worked for Scarpa. Whatever Scarpa told him to do, he would do. They were very close.
If he was there, let them charge him with the murders, not me, because I wasn't.
Authorities have a theory that Gregory Scarpa got AIDS, and he used AIDS as a license to kill.
If I'm to be what they allege me to be, why do I need AIDS to be that way? I could be that way without having AIDS.
Today, Gregory Scarpa is under house arrest and under 24-hour surveillance. He's facing 2 murder charges and a death sentence from AIDS. But Scarpa intends to stay tough until the end.
It's a killer. No question about it. It's a killer, and I accept it. Maybe I'll get lucky and get a heart attack and not die of the AIDS virus. Heart attack, bango. It's all over.
While Gregory Scarpa continues his battle with AIDS, another battle rages. In the last 6 weeks, there have been 6 shootings in what police say is the continuing Colombo crime war.
Alphonse Persico, also known as Ali Boy, is a former acting boss of the Colombo crime family from the 1980s through the 1990s. He is not to be confused with his uncle of the same name, who was also a Colombo crime family mobster known as Ali Boy, who died in 1989. Born in New York in 1954, Alphonse grew up in South Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, and Hempstead. His father is Carmine Persico, the former boss of the Colombo family. Alphonse Persico's brother is Michael Persico, considered by federal prosecutors to also belong to the Colombo crime family. Unlike some mobsters, the young Alphonse was a promising student who graduated from high school and was accepted into college at St. John's University in New York. Persico contemplated going to law school. Instead, he quit St. John's after his second year, presumably to work for his father. By his mid-20s, he was reportedly a captain, running his own crew. He enjoyed the power and excitement of the mob life. In 1983, he was arrested for heroin possession, but the case was dismissed after his identity was discovered. In 1986, after being sentenced to 100 years in prison, Carmine Persico designated his son, Alphonse Persico, as the Colombo acting boss. However, in 1987, Alphonse was convicted of racketeering and sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. With his son Alphonse in prison, Carmine Persico selected Colombo mobster Vittorio Arena, a loyal captain and distant cousin, to be the temporary acting boss. In selecting Arena, Persico made it clear to the family that his son Alphonse would become acting boss again when released from prison. In the spring of 1991, Arena decided that he wanted to run the Colombo crime family without the Persicos. Vinny told consigliere Carmine Sessa to call a referendum of the family captains to approve it. In response, Carmine Persico ordered Arena's murder from prison. On June 20, 1991, Persico gunmen unsuccessfully tried to kill Arena at his home. In November 1991, after several months of negotiations, the Persico and Arena factions broke into open warfare. Still in prison, Alphonse Persico directed the campaign against Arena. On May 13, 1993, Alphonse and other family leaders were indicted on racketeering charges and also the 1992 murders of Arena loyalists John Minerva, Nicholas Granzio and Michael Imbergamo. By October 1993, Arena and many of his followers had been sent to prison. Carmine Persico retained control of the Colombo family. On August 8, 1994, Alphonse Persico was acquitted of the 1993 federal racketeering and murder charges due to the revelations about Colombo Captain Gregory Scarpa and his relationship with the FBI. Persico was now a free man, but he did not become acting boss right away. Instead, he spent much of the next few years at his family home in Florida. In '96, Carmine Persico appointed his cousin Andrew Russo as acting boss. In August 1999, Russo was convicted of jury tampering and sentenced to 57 months. He was also sentenced to 123 months for both parole violation and his involvement in a racketeering case of a Long Island carting company. When Russo went to prison, Alphonse Persico finally took over the acting boss job. Ali Boy's second stint as acting boss would last only a year before he was sent back to prison. In early 1999, the U.S. Coast Guard stopped him in his speedboat as he was motoring in the Florida Keys. After searching the vessel, Coast Guardsmen arrested Persico for possessing a shotgun and a semi-automatic handgun as a felon. In May 1999, Carmine, or Alphonse, allegedly ordered the murder of his newly appointed, temporary acting underboss, William Cutolo. Persico's motive might have been revenge for Cutolo's support of Arena in 1991. Another theory is that since Alphonse Persico was facing prison again for the Florida weapons charge, Persico feared that Cutolo would seize control of the family during his absence. On May 26, 1999, Cutolo's wife, Marguerite Cutolo, reported her husband missing. Earlier that day, Alphonse Persico had summoned Cutolo to meet with him at a park in the Bay Ridge section of Brooklyn. When Cutolo arrived, Colombo hitmen Thomas Joly, Dino Calabro, and Dino Saraceno took Cutolo to Saraceno's apartment, where they murdered him. Joly later buried Cutolo's body in a field in Farmingdale, New York, where it remained undiscovered until October 2008. In October of 1999, Persico Jr. was arrested again in New York on federal racketeering, loan sharking and bank fraud charges. The arresting agent searched his Brooklyn apartment and uncovered $25,000 in cash, along with records of extensive loan sharking and credit card fraud activities. He was released on bail. He was convicted a year later on the Florida gun charges and sent to federal prison in Florida for 18 months. On January 24, 2001, Persico finished his weapons sentence and was due for release from prison in Florida. However, that same day, he was transported back to New York, where prosecutors indicted him on loan sharking charges. The government also suspected him in the Cutolo murder and was starting to build a case. Ali Boy was held without bail. On December 20, 2001, he pleaded guilty to federal racketeering, loan sharking, and money laundering charges from 1999 and 2001. The judge sentenced him to 13 years in federal prison. He was finally indicted in New York for the Cutolo murder in 2004. However, on November 3, 2006, the judge declared a mistrial due to allegations that Cutolo's wife Marguerite had lied under oath. In the second trial, on December 28, 2007, Persico and John DeRoss were convicted of murder in aid of racketeering and witness tampering. Alphonse Persico was sentenced to life in prison without parole. In February 2010, Colombo hitman Frank Sparacco reportedly told prosecutors that Persico had ordered the 1992 murder of Michael Devine, a Staten Island nightclub owner. Devine, who was found shot to death in his car. He had allegedly enraged Persico by dating Persico's wife Teresa during their separation. No charges have been filed. In September 2015, Persico was serving his life sentence at the United States Penitentiary, Coleman near Coleman, Florida, and in July 2017, he was transferred to the Federal Correctional Institution, McKean in Pennsylvania.